Welcome to another Business Spotlight, where we share insights, reflections, and pearls of wisdom from local business owners. My name is Kerry James. I'm a business coach and facilitator. And on today's Business Spotlight, we have founder of Comms Rebel, Advita Patel. Good afternoon to you, Advita, and welcome to Business Spotlight.
Hi, Kerry. I'm delighted to be here today.
Very good. So, Comms Rebel, please tell us a little bit about the history. How long have you been involved in the business and what do you specialize in, please?
So Comms Rebel I launched Comms Rebel, I should say, in 2020, January, because I felt at the time that 2020 was going to be a brilliant year to launch a new business. And I've been working my way up to starting my own business for about 2 years previously. I knew that I wanted to work for myself around June 2018, and I spent a year and a half, 2 years, trying to identify what I could offer the market and what that looked like. So you do all the usual things that people tell you to do, your business plan, your objectives, your strategy, all of that kind of stuff. And I launched it in January 2020. And Comms Rebel is about doing things differently in the world of work. So I'm an internal communication and employee experience consultancy. And I work with organizations to help them think differently about how they may communicate with their colleagues and peers and leaders and customers in order to help the business thrive even further. So I kind of started with gusto in January 2020. And then, as we all know, 9 weeks, 10 weeks later, the pandemic hit the world, the globe, and the world did almost stop turning, which was a very interesting experience for a brand new business who had spent a lot of energy and time in developing this identity that I wanted to establish across the business world.
Excellent. So a fascinating topic. What might be your ideal client, or what type of clients do you attract, would you say, Advita?
I work with a range of different business owners and clients, from large multinational global organizations to small startups. It's often clients who are struggling to articulate their vision and mission in their organization and getting the buy-in from their colleagues, or clients who want me to help them understand what an inclusive culture can look like for them, and if they're struggling to kind of create that psychological safe space. And my opinion is that, you know, if you can't communicate, you can't lead. And that was shared by a great author called Thomas Erickson as well, who's written a book called Surrounded by Idiots and Surrounded by Bosses, and a range of other books as well. But I completely resonate with that phrase. You know, if you can't communicate, you can't lead. So I try and help leaders understand what their communication style is like and help them communicate better with their team. So I do attract a range of businesses across, like I said, across the globe.
Yes, I'm Surrounded by Idiots. I need to get around to read that one. I did buy it for a client, actually, and it links into some of the profiling work that we do with our clients. So yeah, I know I need to get around to actually reading that one.
It's great. He came and spoke at my conference last week, which was on June the 14th. And he was my keynote speaker, Thomas Erickson, and he's just got a very brilliant way of communicating how we can work with people who are a little bit different from us. And he uses the DISC analysis, which is the color: red, blue, green, yellow.
Yes,
which is what I love. You know, I know we shouldn't label people, and it's not about labeling, and he did articulate that, but it is about understanding how we can work with people who may be different to how we may work. And I think that's a very interesting psychological thing for us to pay attention to.
So you mentioned COVID. Clearly that's quite an environmental impact that lots of businesses felt in very different ways, but there's other environmental movements or trends or dynamics going on, whether that's EDI or the labor market, or hybrid working, or more people working from home. How have all these sort of things impacted on your industry and your business, would you say?
It was a very interesting time for me, Kerry. You know, as a brand new business owner, I didn't really understand what I was doing. I think, like with most business owners at the start of their business, and when COVID came, it really shook me, to be honest. You know, and lots of established businesses that have been around for decades were closing the doors, and I realized, you know, what am I doing in this space? What should I be doing? And thankfully, having a great community around me, a coach, a mentor, and people who were very supportive of the work I was doing kept me going. And it also gave me opportunities to investigate other avenues that I hadn't really thought about. And I started a second business in March 2020 with a mentor, actually, who was, we both had a very similar experiences. And we started a second business called A Leader Like Me, which is, at the time, was a program aimed at underrepresented women who wanted to progress in their careers. And it was a perfect time for us to launch this because everybody was generally at home. We could do it online, and it was a 12-week program that people could join. And that probably wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for COVID, because it allowed me to take the risk and think, you know, what's the worst that can happen? And that's how the pandemic, as horrendous as it was for so many people, it did give me an opportunity to not stay so static as I was prior to that with my kind of business plan and road that I thought I had to go down. Okay,
so let's bring it up to right up to the present then, Advita. What would you say your main challenges to your business today?
Today, I would say there's impact with the economic decline that we're experiencing, the cost of living. Businesses are being cautious, rightly so, in how they invest their money and what that means for them as well, and the return on investment. So as a business, you know, we have to work much harder to demonstrate the return on investment that many organizations will be asking for, which is right, in my opinion. And I think those days where you could have just gone in with a proposal and had a chat, you know, I think that's becoming much more much more kind of in depth in terms of, can you tell us, if we invest in you and the work that you do, what return will we get from that? Which is a fair question to be asking, but it does mean that we've had to adjust the way we work and talk more about metrics and measurement, which is, you know, something I do enjoy talking about because I think it's important, but it's even more so now. And that's the impact I've seen.
So, yeah, the metrics associated with cultural development, etc. Tell us more about how you answer those challenges from your clients, about how you get an ROI on the type of investments in the programs that you run.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it depends on what the key outcomes are needed. So I help people cultivate an inclusive culture. And I ask the leaders that I work with, what does this mean for them? What does a culture of inclusivity look like? What does it feel like when people belong in a space? And what behaviors do you see when people feel safe? And often that means that there's better performance, better innovation, reduced sickness, better retention, better recruitment. And that all impacts the kind of the figures that the board look at on a day-to-day basis. And if we work with them on things like those metrics to say that, where are you right now with retention and absence, and why, you know, what are the exit interviews telling you, and what's your engagement scores telling you? And let's put trackers in place to understand where we need to influence some change and help people in your organization understand the value that they're bringing, so they feel like they can belong and feel like they can speak up and contribute as much as they can to the organization. And that's, you know, those are the kind of metrics I like to use. And there's obviously other metrics in there, but it is highly dependent on what is the business outcomes, what is the business looking for, and where are their kind of pockets of pitfalls that they need to address in the business. And we're quite bespoke with the metrics.
Okay, and interesting stuff. What about aspirations for your business then? Do you see it as being very different in 3 to 5 years' time, or where would you like to take the business?
I think for my business, it's all about helping the organizations more than in terms of inclusion, more than it ever has been before. I think the changes that we've seen in the EDI space over the last 24 months, 3 years, has demonstrated the need for organizations to understand what that looks like for them. And I hope Comms Rebel, we are about doing things differently. There's a quote by Einstein that says, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expect to see change is a sign of insanity. And that's one of the reasons I did call my business Comms Rebel, which is a risk. Rebel has a very it's very subjective in terms of how people look at rebel, but I like to call myself the constructive, rebel, or the positive disruptor, because you do need to take a pause at time and understand actually what direction are we going in, and what does this look like for us, and where do I need to go, and who do I need to bring with me. And there's so much research and studies out there that demonstrates that when you have a team of people who think differently to how you may think, can really help the business thrive. And I would hope in the next 3 to 5 years we have a more of a global reach in organizations to help them communicate better around inclusion.
So what sort of size and shape of team have you got at the moment then, Advita, and where would you like to see that move to in the next 3 to 5 years?
So at the moment we have 8 people working with Comms Rebel. I would love to see more of and they're all based in the UK at the moment, but my ambition would be to have Comms Rebels or Rebels across different countries and spaces as well, where we can have support no matter where you are right now. At the moment we do work globally at the moment, but we work UK is our base. But I would love to have different bases where we can support other international businesses, depending on their cultural setting as well, because that's important to remember, the different cultures can impact as well. Sure.
Okay. Well, good luck with that journey. Let's go. You mentioned before how when it started off, you felt a little bit challenged as a new business owner. What would you say are the top lessons you've learned over the last 2 years since you've started running the business, would you say, Advita? If you were advising yourself on day one today, what might be your top tips?
Top tip, get a coach. I had a business coach from the start of my journey. They were very supportive. I think it's really important for you to have somebody that you can lean in on and get that support. I am a coach myself. I know the benefits of coaching and the impact it can have. I would also say surround yourself with people who understand, who are your community. My community really helped me during this time where I was feeling despair, to be honest. Should I go back in-house? Should I ask my old manager for my job back? All of those kind of things were going through my head, but having that community was really important. I would also say one of the big things is self-belief. You have to have self-belief in your own in yourself. If you don't have that self-belief in yourself, then you can't expect anybody else to have that self-belief. And if you are struggling with self-esteem and confidence, then I highly recommend that you work on that, because that's what's going to hold you back. And if it wasn't for my confidence and my own self-belief, then I don't think I would be where I am today. And that is down to my own work. It's a skill that I learned. I don't think confidence is not something that you're born with. It is a skill that you have to develop. And it's something that you have to work on a day-to-day basis. And I would say that if any business owners are struggling right now with their confidence or self-esteem or self-belief, then that is something I would recommend you work with as a #1 priority.
Okay, well, obviously, as a coach myself, it's interesting to hear that advice and that suggestion. So I'm interested, what did you get most from your coach? Was it practical tools and suggestions? Was it more about mindset? Was it more about dealing with your own fears, overcoming limiting beliefs? What were the top results or outcomes you felt, the benefits of working with a coach?
It was accountability. And that was my #1 focus. I needed that accountability from my coach, who asked me questions, checked in, gave me reassurance. They also helped with mindset in terms of the blockers and the barriers that I faced. And confidence, I mentioned confidence, but if it wasn't for the coach I had, then they contributed to boosting my confidence, because they kept me accountable. I saw the results, and the results gave me the confidence. So he was and is still a significant part of my business success. And I will talk about coaching until the sun goes down, because I think it's a really important part of any business owner to have that support. And they did give me that, and I'm utterly grateful.
Oh, that's great to hear. Great to hear. Well done on taking the step on making that investment, because lots of people have their own fears about coaching themselves and what that means and why they're doing it and all the rest of it. So great to hear that you got those results. Well, it's been fascinating hearing about where you are in your journey, Advita. One final question, and before we press the record button, we were talking about you as an author. And just to finish off then, if anybody's interested in picking up the challenges of cultural development and having a further chat with you, or pursuing that discussion, what might be a sensible next step? And please do tell us a little bit about your book, please.
Yeah, so just right next to me, we have published a book called Building a Culture of Inclusivity, which I co-authored with my business partner of A Leader Like Me. And it's all about helping leaders build a culture of inclusivity through practical steps. And you can purchase it from most online bookstores, including our publisher. There's going to be a special discount code for folks who are listening in to this interview as well. And it's just, we wanted to create a book that didn't just tell you why it was important to build a culture of inclusivity, but also how to do it. And there are some incredible books out there that really ignite your thinking, but there are not many that tell you how you can make that change. So the book is in two parts. The first part is all about why inclusion is an important part of the work that we do. And then the second part is about, well, this is how you do it. And here's some models and frameworks and some guidance to kind of take you on your inclusion journey with you.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Advita. We'll include those links to that publisher, and we'll make specification of Spotlight being the discount code there. So thanks ever so much for your time and your thoughts and your input, and all the very best to you and all of the team at Comms Rebel.
Thank you so much, Carrie. It's been great chatting to you today.
Thank you very much. All the best. Bye for now.